Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin. We have some great guests tonight, but before we go to them, I want to talk to you. I was thinking about this before the show. Do you realize we have, in many respects, less liberty today than we did before the Revolutionary War? Look at taxation. Look at taxation. It's a disaster. Think about it prior to the Revolutionary War. Look at representation. Do we have representation today? Have you even tried to meet your member of Congress lately? It's impossible. And if you do meet your representative, what are you going to tell them? They're passing 2,700 pages of omnibus spending bills, and they're doing it in the middle of the night. You have no idea what's in those bills. That's less liberty than you had when we didn't have representation. Because what happens here is you get to vote, but you don't get to know anything. And that's the great irony of what's taking place. The Democrat Party has decided that it is going to take control of this country, and it is going to take control of this society and every aspect of this culture. And it's doing so, devouring one piece at a time. And we've reached a pinnacle now where we either claw our way back or we're going to lose this country. Is it too much to ask the 19 Republicans in the United States Senate who sold out at least half of the American people to vote the right way? You know, you look at the founders of this country, they really put their lives and their fortunes on the line. All we ask them to do is vote the right way. And they can't do it, led by Mitch McConnell, the McConnell Republicans, all 19 of them. 30 did the right thing, but McConnell leads a minority of a minority, 19. And he helped grease the skids for what's going to be a massive expansion of already a massive welfare state. And most of our laws are not made by Congress. They're made by this massive welfare state, unelected bureaucrats, millions of them, who work in allegiance to and alliance with the Democrat Party. And I want to talk about that a little bit in my opening discussion with you. And I want to turn to American Marxism. This book has sold 750,000 copies. It has received no attention by the left, purposely. It has received no attention by the Republican establishment, purposely. This book goes around both. It's aimed at you, the people of this country, the people who brought us the Reagan Revolution, the Tea Party Revolution, the Gingrich Revolution, and the Trump Revolution. This is aimed at Democrats and Republicans and everything in between. This is aimed at blacks and browns and yellows and reds and whites, whatever your physical characteristics are of no consequence. If you love liberty and you love this country, it is for you. And I'm beating the pots and pans because what's taking place is going to be irreversible at some point. And it's going to be up to us to do something about it, each and every one of us, because you cannot rely on Mitch McConnell and that gang to do a damn thing right. Here in part is what I say in American Marxism. American Marxism has adapted the language and allure of utopianism, which I wrote about at length in my book, Ameritopia. It is tyranny disguised as a desirable, workable, and even paradisiacal governing ideology. There are unlimited utopian constructs, for the mind is capable of infinite fantasies. But there are common themes. The fantasies take the form of grand social plans and experiments, the impracticability and impossibility of which, in small ways and large, lead to the individual's subjugation. Indeed, the economic and cultural agenda driven by President Joe Biden and the Democrat Party provide ample examples of this ideology and behavior at work. They include massive deficit spending, confiscatory taxation, and the regulation of all things large and small, drenched in Marxist class warfare propaganda, and a slew of executive orders claiming to end numerous historical and cultural injustices. So too does their demand for absolute one-party control over the body politic through various extra-constitutional schemes and other means, as Marxism does not tolerate the competition of ideas or political parties. These efforts include changing the voting system to ensure Democratic Party control for decades, which has as its purpose the eradication of the Republican Party and political competition. Attempting to eliminate the Senate filibuster rule so all manner of laws can be imposed on the country without effective deliberation or challenge. Threatening to breach separation of powers and judicial independence by plotting to pack the Supreme Court with like-minded ideologues. Planning to add Democratic seats to the Senate to ensure its control over that body. using tens of billions, now trillions in taxpayer funds to subsidize and strengthen core parts of the Democratic Party base, and facilitating massive illegal immigration, the purpose of which is to, among other things, alter the nation's demographics and eventually add significantly to the pro-Democratic Party voting base. These actions and designs, among others, are evidence of an autocratic, power-hungry, ideological movement that rejects political and traditional comedy and seeks to permanently crush its opposition and emerge as the sole political and governing power. The latter explains the true motivation of the obsessive, unremitting war against the candidacy and then presidency of Donald Trump and his tens of millions of supporters. The Democrat Party, aligned with its surrogates in the media, academia, and the bureaucratic Leviathan, colluded to discredit and cripple Trump's presidency and destroy him personally by unleashing an onslaught of slanders, conspiracy theories, criminal and congressional investigations, impeachments, and coup attempts, the likes of which this nation has never experienced. The unremitting, harmonized, and ferocious blitz was aimed not only at the former president, but his followers and voters. Their purpose was to break the back and spirit of the political opposition and clear the field of obstacles to power and governance. Indeed, the Democratic Party continues to pursue now private citizen Trump, having gained access to his tax returns for the offices of elected Democratic officials. Now, the campaign to delegitimize and marginalize the Democrat Party's political opposition is further evidenced by Biden's reckless racial rhetoric and accusing Republicans in Georgia and now other states of instituting Jim Crow laws to prevent black citizens from voting, a contemptible lie intended to upset minorities and turn them against the Republican Party. Although weaponizing race is not new to the Democratic Party, given its historic pedigree from supporting slavery to segregation, and Biden's vocal and active opposition to integration early in his Senate career, it is shocking to witness this grotesque rebirth as a political tool. The Democrat Party seeks to empower itself by breaching constitutional firewalls, skirting, if not eradicating, rules, traditions, and customs, adopting Marxist language of class warfare and aligning with certain avowedly Marxist groups and ideological causes, among other things. Moreover, it is using the instrumentalities of the government for its political empowerment and purposes. The truth is that the interests of the Democratic Party come before those of the country, and allegiance to the party is more important than fidelity to the country. It holds these characteristics in common with other autocratic and communist parties throughout the world. Now, Ted McAllister, a professor of public policy at Pepperdine University, makes a persuasive case that today's so-called ruling class, or elites, disdain our country. Here's what he said in an essay, thus always to bad elites. Today, he says, we have a very different elite than America did as recently as the 1980s in terms of their nature, goals, ambitions, style, and ways of exercising power. The deepest fact of our time is that America has a bad elite, a mendacious one whose skills, values, goals, tastes, and types of knowledge are hostile to our nation's inherited cultures and plural people. The new elite that has emerged in the last generation or two has no interest in preserving anything but perhaps their own power. They lack historical knowledge and vision, which they supplant by or exchange for the powers of transformation and change. Intoxicated by the power possible with emerging technologies, inspired by visions that only a deracinated globalist perspective can make attractive, this elite thinks of creative destruction as applied to culture. As winners in what they imagine to be a meritocratic struggle, they can see nothing of an inherited world worth preserving for their very success. The peculiar characteristics of the revolving power have given to our new elite the soul of adolescent art applied to global canvas. They lack any experiential or historical ballast to weigh them down, to slow them in remaking everything according to their desires. For them, streamlining power is key to creation, and the annoying obstacles to their creations are not really checks to prevent tyranny, but rather limitations, unnecessary friction in the headlong rush to transform. For this new elite, he writes, for instance, the good of free speech has become invisible because for them, free speech is simply friction, resistance to their goals. The elimination of hate speech is the goal, and the unimpeachable good that the openness of free speech prevents. In half a generation, the work of centuries is undone and the levers of tyranny put in place. And that's the best, I think, you can say of the openness of free speech prevents. In half a generation, the work of centuries is undone and the levers of tyranny put in place. And that's the best, I think, you can say of the contemporary elites. And what he's describing there, wittingly or unwittingly, is the Marxist mindset. Now, you've heard this before, and I had it at the end of Liberty and Tyranny, when the great Ronald Reagan said words that will go down in history forevermore. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. Was it too much to ask these 19 Senate Republicans to vote the right way? We didn't ask them to fight the British Crown. We didn't ask them to put their wealth on the line. We asked them to vote the right way. Instead, they sold us out. Do they not understand what's swirling around in this country? That our very liberties, our form of government, our economic system, our sovereignty are all at stake? What is with these people? They fight like hell because they want to govern, and then they don't govern. They capitulate. They sell out. These are the McConnell Republicans. This is a disaster. That infrastructure bill laid way for what is now a massive transformation of America that will make the FDR New Deal look like a walk in the park. And they do it with 50 Democrat senators for what is now a massive transformation of America that will make the FDR New Deal look like a walk in the park. And they do it with 50 Democrat senators, with a majority of 4 to 5 votes in the House of Representatives, with no mandate whatsoever, with no input from the American people, with no committee hearings at all? Yes, we were freer before the American Revolution than we are today. What a disgrace. I'll be right back.